for Pitt. Intercepted by Ray Hubble, who may go all the way again. He's going to be cut off near the sideline. He was tripped by a man standing in front of the Winnipeg bench.
First down, Edmonton with the football. McManus going up top for Eddie Brown. What a catch! Eddie Brown! Touchdown, Edmonton! Penalty markers down all over the field.
Illegal substitution, too many men on the field, Saskatchewan.
From 33 yards out to win the 97th Grey Cup. Ball down, ball through.
What is up, everybody? I hope you can see the peanut gallery that we have on the screen right now. If not, it's just me talking. It's your host, Bryce Hopwood. As usual, Ant Ventura will be joining me, but maybe even more importantly, actually, probably more importantly, we have two guests with us. We teased it last week. For those of you who have been supporting us along the way, first of all, we thank you. And we couldn't have the support without these two with us. So without further ado, we have a face for Snack Bites Pete after his faceless interview during the offseason. Winnipeg fan, maybe even first and foremost for this week's Banjo Bowl. And also joining us is, we need to get Guiness on official business here. I haven't seen any confirmations, but our friend, the bucket guy, L Bucket they're calling him, Chris Tymofichuk, Guinness World Record holder for the fastest visit to all 9 stadiums, 10 if you count him being in Touchdown Pacific in Victoria this past weekend. My friends, hello.
Great to be back. And before I even get into the games, I got a little question for Anthony. Listen to last week's episode. You've been a fan for like 1 year and you're trashing the Rouge. How dare you, sir? How dare you?
I said last week, I like the Rouge as a concept. I hate it at the end of the game. It's objectively stupid way to end the game. We have another thing to talk about that's stupid with the CFL today. We'll get to that, but that's a dumb way to end the game. Everybody knows that.
I prepared no real material, so I am excited to hear Ant's thoughts there. Bucket Man, I got to hear from you down there. You got both of the jerseys, the great CFL fans one, and then the old Milt. That's kind of what you're known for. But you've been to now 10 different CFL venues for a game this year. How did Victoria looked great? Tell me a little bit about Victoria this weekend in Touchdown Pacific.
Yeah, the biggest factor we were unsure of was the weather. It's always a little wet on the West Coast, and the weather was absolutely fantastic, if not a little warm. The city, the fans, everybody sort of jumped into it. I don't think anybody expected Nathan Rourke's 99-year-old grandma to be at the game, and she was there, and obviously he played for her, and Ottawa really just didn't get out of the starting blocks at all. But the event itself says there's interest in the CFL outside of the 9 current cities. Whether it's sustainable in the future or not, I think the league and everyone will look at that. But it was a really good opportunity. There's a lot of CFL fans on Vancouver Island that make the trek across to BC Place. So it was nice for them to be able to go to a game and be home in their own bed that night. And overall, the CFL and the BC Lions and the Ottawa Redblacks did a really, really nice job.
It looked awesome. I don't know what the venue in front, like that picture, like the like castle-y deal was. You can probably tell me, but that looked beautiful. It was gorgeous on the island there. So I was excited to see that. And that's actually something I've had in my notes, is adding a 10th team. I mean, between obviously you have Rourke now, who is hopefully going to stay. He's kind of been like the one who's promised almost. It feels like from CFL fans, he's like last couple of years while he's tried his hand in the NFL. And then you have like even Davis Alexander, like the way he slings the ball, obviously in the interim for Cody Fajardo for my Montreal Alouettes, which I want to talk about a little bit this week too. But yeah, I guess you guys obviously know a much bigger history of the game. What do you guys, a 10th team, 11th team, 12th team, what's, I guess, kind of a two-part question. The first one I'll ask is, back in the 90s when they expanded to the US, what was the main hang up?
Okay, so a 10th Canadian team is something that's been teased since the mid 1980s. there's been talk of the Atlantic Schooners are this mystical 10th team that kind of keeps floating around here and there. And actually, there was a time that Montreal folded as well. So interestingly, the Bombers have won Grey Cups, both representing the East and the West, because being in the middle of Canada, they've bumped East when there's only 3 other teams in the East. Once they get another team, they move back to the West. The U.S. expansion was really, it was a tough time for the CFL, attendance-wise, money-wise, and it was a chance to increase some revenue. But you're bringing a game into some major college towns that weren't really fully ready to embrace the CFL. It was a short-lived experiment, and it just didn't find its market at that point. I would be surprised. There's been some buzz about possible NFL or possible American expansion cities again here and there, but I just think it's not feasible. I can see a 10th team, either Quebec City or somewhere, Halifax, Fredericton, Moncton, somewhere in the East. Once you get one of those established, there is a pathway to 12, which would be the other area that doesn't get a team in the East, and then possibly somewhere in the interior of BC, Kelowna, Kamloops. That area has a population base that might be able to support another one. I think we need to get that 10th team up and healthy before we even consider looking at 11 and 12.
Yeah, at this point, I just want more CFL in my life. I mean, we were talking before while we were waiting to everybody to hop in. It was just like I was watching the first week of college football, and I love college football, and it's great. Some of the atmospheres are amazing and insane, but it just, you watch that all summer, watch the CFL all summer, and then go to that, and I was like, this is missing something. I need a guy running. I need, maybe the lateral movement is fine and dandy, but I need somebody starting about 10, 15 yards back and running up. But Chris, I guess I want to throw it to you with kind of not necessarily the U.S. expansion, but something that I don't see. Your name is Heath, and you have a screen name on the X application. So I don't know if I should go with Snack Bites Pete or not, but I guess that's how you're commonly known here. So SBP. I mean, you were kind of sticking with the Victoria theme that you were just there, Chris. I feel like I've noticed it throughout the summer too, and it helps that kids aren't in school for sure. But it feels like there's a huge youth movement with the CFL. I mean, was that pretty obvious in Victoria too? Obviously, kind of. I guess I don't know how school works up there with that, but what was the attendance like as far as the youth movement with the CFL?
Yeah, it's a good point. There was definitely a younger generation at this game in particular to all of the established franchises. I think that's one of the things the CFL really has to work on is marketing to the younger generation. I think the NFL does a better job. The CFL has to do that. The dinosaurs like me aren't going to be around forever to support the league, right? You got to start going to younger generations. And the CFL will do things unusual, and U.S. expansion was one of them. As Pete said, the fact that they went to the U.S. really was a financial lifeline to keep the league going. Eventually, all of the franchises sort of went away. Baltimore was successful. I mean, they didn't have an NFL franchise at the time, and that proved that they could support one. So without that expansion, Baltimore probably doesn't get an NFL team. And it also brought some of the key players over the years, like Anthony Calvillo. He was discovered through U.S. expansion. So it wasn't all bad. Unfortunately, it didn't stick. I don't think they'll go to the U.S. again at this point with the other leagues there. And as much as I would love to see a 10th team, I mean, I think right now the dream of a 10th team in the league is somewhat further off. I think the Atlantic Schooners idea is almost dead. They are looking at Quebec City as a potential, but the financial interests there aren't that interested because they've got a very good, successful university team there that would any CFL team would take away from. So there are some challenges to getting that 10th team. I think the league will keep working it. I hope fans support it, but I think we're a ways off from seeing the reality of it.
I'm just going to jump back in quickly just to talk about the youth fan expansion in the CFL as well. And it's not just the league as a whole, but teams get on board in bringing in young fans. And I was at Mosaic last weekend to see the Bombers gloriously defeat the Saskatchewan Roughriders 35-33 in a memorable Labor Day game. They had an announcement there, and I've seen it at previous games as well. $99 gets you 2 adult tickets and 2 youth tickets for this Rider fan zone or something. So a kid-friendly part of the field. I know the Edmonton Elks have some fantastic packages for season tickets that you can basically bring a kid for free. It's a great way to bring that next generation up. I think Chris and I are kind of in that same age bracket that we're not going anywhere. So they don't need to market to us necessarily, unless you're an Elks fan or a former Edmonton football team fan that cries about a name change and all that sort of stuff. You weren't a fan anyway, if that's your takeaway. But guys our age, we are lifelong CFL fans. We're here, but it's now that next generation younger than us. How do we get them to bring their kids? And that's what they're working on now.
So I get, yeah, on top of that, I guess I'll keep pushing now because I'm interested in this topic a lot because I feel like here in the US, at least in my experience, like you have people like like the Florida State guy, like that was his, I don't know if you guys saw that, if you guys are big college football fans, put the red Solo cup and stuff. Very funny, like people will make their like burner accounts and be strictly for their college team or NFL team, right? And then they have a following, like there's known faces, and I guess I'm either missing that or I feel like that's a place where the CFL could see. I mean, obviously you guys have similar accounts, like and you kind of have what you're known for in the CFL, obviously, like on social media, but I guess to come up with a legitimate question there would be, is that something that I think we're missing with the younger generation, where like we need kind of these like fan figureheads to get people going? I mean, Chris, obviously you've been around the entire Canadian globe, if you will, this year already. What do you think on that kind of front?
Yeah.
And like obviously social media was huge with everything you were doing.
Yeah, I think that would help with the sort of semi-young, sort of the teen and older group, really college kids. That's what those are targeted as. But I think the real marketing they have to work on is actually younger than that. Kids from the age of 5 to 12. They don't want to sit in a seat and watch a sports event for 3 hours, whether it's football, hockey, basketball. They've got their phones. They want to follow animated stuff. They want to follow statistics. They want to follow contests. That's what they're doing, right? You look at any sporting event in the stands and the kids are looking down at their phone. And that's where the NFL has done a good job of that. And the CFL is somewhat behind. So I think that's where they have to focus is the digital younger entertainment.
That's an interesting point. I obviously so new to this that I hadn't thought about it that way. I'm excited to see this thing hopefully keep growing. I mean, we even talked about like the Reddit page, I think, since we posted our first episode there, and obviously got a lot of feedback and has obviously ended up bringing us all together as good friends in this chat. And Ant, I need to hear from you soon as well, because you got a big coy smile on your face. But yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I think, I know Ant and I mean, Ant was watching obviously the game, the Labor Day game over both of us were over a ranked, college football matchup. And that's something that a year ago I would have told you you're absolutely nuts on. So I think there is staying power. There's plenty of football fans and there's plenty to go around. I mean, especially, I don't know, in the US, there's like this disconnect, I think, where some people think you have to be like an NFL fan or college fan, or obviously plenty of people into both. But I think a need for that summer and spring football can be definitely covered by the CFL and grab the attention of, even if it's a fleeting moment there for the summer, these first 10 weeks, 11 weeks of the season as we get into Labor Day. But and I think it's time. I don't want to call it a reckoning of sorts, but let's talk about the football that happened last week. We've been mentioning Victoria and everything. That was a great game. Like I said, it was gorgeous. Rourke, who one day, I think, like I said last week, kind of tease it. I hope one day we get him on this podcast because of our connection with Curtis, his younger brother. But they absolutely dominate Ottawa. And then we had to go to Sunday the 1st, my grandmother's birthday. Shout out my grandmother. I had Winnipeg. I had like all the away teams last week. I had Winnipeg. Brett Lothar lines it up from way downtown all the way I don't know if there's a good distance joke in there for our Canadian geographers that we have with us, but it looked like it was going in, and it was about 5 yards short. What was your thoughts? Because the group chat with SBP and you was getting a little fiery, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, just I'll preface, Chris, SBP, you guys, I consider you friends. So I apologize for anything mean I say here. I will say mean stuff. I apologize in advance. Just getting that out there now, because
Not
I
to
consider
worry,
you
Ant.
guys
We
friends.
will not apologize. So you care.
That's very Canadian of you. Very Canadian. Yeah, I mean, fucking kickers. He already cost us one game. Not saying that was it. Make the fucking kick. You can get a ton of guys. There are thousands of kids in the U.S. and I'm sure in Canada that can make a damn 60-yard kick. I understand pressure and all that stuff. I understand it's difficult. I couldn't do it. There are plenty of kids that could do it. I see guys on TikTok all the time lining up 60-yard kicks. Just fucking find one that can make a damn kick. Just find one. It can't be that hard. He's already cost us another game. I need a new kicker. And yeah, that's what I'll start with that. I need a new kicker. I thought it was in.
It was funny because I had auto money line, and I chalked that up as a loss pretty much within like the first 8 minutes of the first quarter. So then after they got the onside and I'm sitting there, the accuracy was the problem in the Montreal game. And then for it to be, I mean, it was dead center, dead, just perfect. And then just to not even like, it would have been not good from 57. It was crazy. Obviously, Snack Bites Pete, you were in the crowd. We got pictures pregame. What was your thoughts as it was
He's
lined
beating
up?
up a kid in the crowd. Were you in a cell by that time? I heard a couple of you guys got rowdy beating up some kids.
Yeah, well, I
That's
just
for Winnipeg fans.
for the record, so this is something that you Americans might not know. Pilsner, this is a Saskatchewan beer of choice, and it's kind of like Rider fan tears in a can here right now. So
your Winnipeg counterpart does
yeah.
not approve.
You have no idea what that tastes like. He's taking one for the team.
It's not great, but it's a taste of victory. So I'll take it. I was in attendance. I was sitting on about the 45-yard line. Now, one thing that didn't really show, maybe if you're watching the game from home, is Lothar hit from 55 earlier. Castillo hit from 52 and another 57-yard bomb. Those were all going the other direction. There was a wind that we couldn't really feel it in our seats, but once we got out of the stadium, it was a pretty strong wind coming out of the south. So he was kicking that into a headwind. And as much as you want to shit on Brett Lothar for that awful game against Montreal, well deserved. This one, you got to cut him some slack, because I don't even know if the great Sergio Castillo would have cleared it by much. He probably would have bounced it off the crossbar and in, but it was taking a hell of a leg to get it there. From my seat, I could tell right away that it wasn't going, so I was jumping up and down. And there was one other Bomber fan in my section, so I made sure I turned around and gave him a high five. It was fantastic. But yeah, you can't pin this one on Lothar. There's a lot of other things that went wrong for the Riders.
Chris, as the kind of, I feel like you've been like the ambassador for the CFL and the different teams, obviously with your world record holding self, going around all the stadiums this year. I gotta ask, like, what as a Winnipeg fan, what separates you from Saskatchewan? What's at the core? What is the the core? What is the issue?
At the very core, it's good teeth. Right, good teeth. No, I tease. I mean, we love to make fun of our teams, but we do love the other fans. We love our Rider fan friends. It was unfortunate. There were some ugly incidents in the stands, right? That just should never happen. That we make reference to. We always make fun of the U.S. games for that kind of thing, and then it happens here. So there's going to be clowns, at every stadium. But in general, it's a really good atmosphere, and we'll talk about the Banjo Bowl and what that's like in Winnipeg coming back. It's everybody should experience a Labor Day Classic, whether it's in Regina, Hamilton, or Calgary.
Feel free for either of you. We kind of talked about it last week, and I think SBP, this is the only thing we didn't really get as a explanation from you as your American friends is if it feels like Labor Day is like a big I don't really know. I know like Thanksgiving is kind of different in Canada. That might be true. I really don't know about the holiday situation. It felt like Labor Day is like pretty important. So I'll have you kind of speak on the importance and kind of what that means for Canada Labor Day.
For sure. So there's a couple of big holidays that are key here. One is Victoria Day, which is fairly close to your Memorial Day, might even fall on the same weekend, kind of the unofficial start to the summer. A lot of people go and open up their cottages. It's in honor of Queen Victoria's birthday. Most people in Canada probably don't even know that. They just call it May Long. But that's the unofficial start to summer. Labor Day weekend is kind of that end, right? Kids are back to school this week. It's the last long weekend of really getting out there and celebrating summer. Cottages and cabins don't generally shut down Labor Day weekend. It's more our Thanksgiving is when they wrap that up, because you can get some nice weather in September, October. But this is that, fall season's in the air. The importance of these games too. You're past the midway point of the season now, and playoff pictures start to come into focus a little bit. So as far as the football perspective, this is a big weekend for us. There's not really a lot of other tradition on Labor Day, I would say, in Canada, other than just, like I said, the last kind of blowout of summer party weekend.
All right, I love that.
There is a saying as a CFL fan that the real season does not begin until Labor Day.
I love that. I'm excited. It makes me happy. Now, let's talk about some tradition. So we have the Banjo Bowl. Obviously, we did a sloppy job last week, kind of reading through the beginning of and how it started and everything. So one gripe I had, obviously I know they play 3 times a year. It would be a lot to play 3 times in the final 11 weeks of the year. So I don't like the early matchup. I kind of like the Labor Day home and home situation, but the Banjo Bowl. Obviously, we were in Mosaic last week. Now we're in Winnipeg. Is it always the Mosaic first and then in Princess Auto?
It is, yeah. So a couple notes on that. The Labor Day game has traditionally been in Regina for, I think this was the 59th Labor Day.
Yeah, I think that's what they were saying on the broadcast.
Right. So they've always had that home date on Labor Day. Now the two teams don't always play each other 3 times in a season. It kind of alternates. One year they'll play 3 times. The next year they'll only play 2. So it just happens the way the schedule fell this year that we did get that early game. I'm with you. I love the home and home. And this was something, and it wasn't always a home and home, and it was Winnipeg's football club really lobbying to get that return date, saying we have hundreds and thousands of fans that make the trek to Regina every year for this game. Let's pay it back and get the Riders back here in a meaningful game right after. Now the Banjo Bowl moniker came much after that as well, but we did get the return game for quite a while, and it's now that it's been branded the Banjo Bowl. It's a consistent thing that we know. Regina Labor Day weekend, the return is coming back to Winnipeg.
So what, I guess too, what happened? Because it was after a playoff game, right? That the kicker was mouthing off. Why did we decide that the day after? I mean, I guess maybe that's just schedule making, and maybe you don't know, but is that just how it works? All right, this is now the Banjo Bowl, or why this weekend?
Yeah, so Troy Westwood was the Bombers kicker for years. I can say good and bad things about Troy, especially the end of his career. He made Brett Lother look like a god the way he was kicking at the end of his career. But yeah, he mouthed off and after the playoff game and said something about Rider fans being nothing but a bunch of banjo picking inbreds. He later apologized and said that most people in Saskatchewan don't even know how to play the banjo. So this is where it took off, and the Winnipeg Football Club and their promotion, they latched onto this and decided, hey, we're going to get this return game after the Labor Day game. Let's make it something special, something that we can market. and the Banjo Bowl was born. They've got a ridiculous trophy of a banjo that gets passed back and forth to the winning team. So it's a great. I guess this will be the 20th, I believe. I think.
Yeah, I think that's what they're saying.
So this is the 20th rendition of the Banjo Bowl here coming up.
And so I know they were talking about Labor Day weekend being the kind of like the rivalry weekend, and obviously Montreal was kind of kept out this year. Chris, can you talk to me about some of these rivalries? I mean, you're obviously at the Ottawa BC game. Like, does that live up to the same billing, or how does that going?
Well, I think the top rivalry would be Hamilton, Toronto, as well as the back in, home and home series. Winnipeg, Saskatchewan is a very close second. Ideally, Ottawa, Montreal being just down the road should be the equivalent. But again, we talked about having 9 teams. You can't leave BC out of it every year. This year, they decided to include them. And then Calgary, Edmonton, same thing. You got a host of fans going down the number 2 down to Calgary for the game, and the following week they'll be heading north on the 2 up to Edmonton. And unfortunately, they're 2 weaker teams. Calgary's struggling a little bit, but in the glory years, I mean, Commonwealth Stadium would fill with close to 60,000 fans on Labor Day or the return of Labor Day due to all the fans coming in. So the rivalries are strong. The Banjo Bowl was sold out weeks ago. These games are big for the fans. The players get hyped up for them as well. And then there's a little letdown as you sort of finish the season, get into the playoffs. But they get fired up for it too.
I'm very excited for this second half. And I know if you're listening, folks, this is probably not all new to you, but it's very new to us. So this is giving me butterflies on the inside. And I know there's been some big news in the CFL this week. So I want to do a little bit more on the Banjo Bowl just because we have you guys, which I appreciate you guys and you donating your time to us low level Americans. But when it comes to the Banjo Bowl this year, we can talk. We'll talk about the 2 teams we're seeing. Winnipeg, obviously, just won. They're streaking again. Right. What SBP, I'll start with you, and then Chris, if you have anything else you want to follow up with, go ahead. What are you seeing that you're like from Winnipeg right now? Because Claros was okay again, but he hasn't been like what we thought we were going to see from what we had built in our heads historically, at least coming into a first full season.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. Claros, the offense has struggled this year. They've had some pretty big injuries to the receiving core as well. Offensive line, they've lost some key guys. He looked good in the first half in Regina. Like, this game, the Labor Day game and the Banjo Bowl are as close to the U.S. college rivalries as you'll see in the CFL. Huge crowds, passionate fans, and it gets rowdy. So for a visiting team to go in and win is a pretty big deal. The way Claros was moving the ball in the first half was fantastic, and it gave us a lot of hope going into halftime. There was a roughing the passer penalty that knocked him out of the game. Some people are calling for Miles Brown's head. I'm not here to do that. It was a late hit. It was a high hit.
Barely.
No. He's probably going to get fined, and deservedly so. I don't think it's suspension worthy.
I get it.
Nothing like that. So I'm just going to put that out there. Now let's talk Banjo Bowl and the last 3 starts of Zach Collaros in the Banjo Bowl. In 2021, Bombers win 33-9. 22, Bombers win 54-20.
Luck again.
And last year, 51-6. The Bombers,
oh my gosh.
The Bombers scored touchdowns on their first 6 possessions. So every possession of the first half resulted in a touchdown. Were it not for a drop by Kenny Lawler in the end zone, it would have been 7 straight touchdowns. They had to settle for a field goal on their march to 51-6. I expect that their goal is to put another 50 burger up against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And if things go right, they're going to do it.
Wow. Chris, do you have any follow-up?
I love the optimism. It all depends on whether Zach plays this weekend. If he does, I could see it going that way. If he doesn't, what was it? 4 passes, 46 yards. It's the exact opposite. We become a 1950s style team where you're just running the ball nonstop. So if Zach is in, things are good. If he's not, that's a little worrisome because Saskatchewan's going to be pushing hard to get that win back.
And
he did participate in full practice today. I saw the line.
I was gonna say that. And before you go, Caleros was full today in practice. Big Hill, not so much. I mean, that looked pretty tough. I wouldn't anticipate him playing this week. I would be surprised if we don't hear it something a little bit more major. Obviously, Stanley Bryant was out too. He was limited in practice, so that's good to hear. And then Lucky Whitehead did not practice as well. And when it comes to Saskatchewan, I mean, the offensive line situation is an absolute problem. And Schaefer... Dante Myers did not practice. That should give our guy Jojo a good shot this week. But, Harris is healthy. I mean, Hickson has been good, but the line is going to be the question against a good Winnipeg defense. And so you're the lone man punching back. I'll give you your swings now.
All right. First, we're going to talk about last week. You mentioned this roughing the passer. Look, on that play, there was a ghost pass interference call that I brought up to Snack Bites Pete here. And his response was not, that was a good call, or it was pass interference. No, it was the refs make mistakes. You just got to deal with it. Like, suck it up. That's a dumb take. That is a stupid take. In every other league on the planet, if there's a problem with the refs, they try to fix it. But your response over there in Winnipeg is just deal with it. Just deal with it anyways. They got bad refs. So what? Stupid. I hate that. No. We're going on this week. Go ahead.
It's years of learning how to deal with the bad calls. You want to talk bad passing?
Fix the bad calls. If there's bad calls, fix them. Pay some damn refs. I don't want volunteer refs. We tried volunteer refs in the NFL for one season, and everybody wanted it gone. The first game, it was the Packers, I think, right?
It was the Packers, yeah.
No, we don't want replacement. We don't want volunteer refs. Pay some goddamn real refs so we can have actual calls here. This is a farce.
So what were your thoughts on the pass interference on the with 14 seconds left?
When the Riders
received
it was
smile.
Clearly PI. Anybody who knows football knows that was PI.
I will before I let it keep going, and smile when he knows he's about to be cheeky is my favorite smile maybe on planet Earth. But yeah, it was very fun seeing you two go back and forth in our group chat, which Chris, I mean, you're more than welcome. I figure a man of the Guinness World Record holders probably doesn't want to be stooped to Ant's level. And you said,
I would love
when we win this week.
I would love to get up to his level. There's no way. It'll take me years to get up that high.
Oh, I love it. So we'll do that. We'll get that coordinated. And you said that was kind of your speech. I'm sorry, from last week. What do you got this week?
Okay, so they're citing this last 3 years. Here's what happened. I don't care about history. This is about right now. My NFL team, the Cleveland Browns, have been the worst team in the damn NFL for 2 decades. Our biggest rival was the Steelers. They were straight skull fucked us for 2 decades. And then we meet them in a game in the playoffs in 2020, and they said, we haven't won in Pittsburgh since 2002. 2002, we hadn't won in Pittsburgh. But we beat their ass that day. We just need one game. This it's starting to sound like the speech from Miracle. I don't care. We just need one fucking time. They could beat us 9 times. We just need one time. That's all we need. Winnipeg needs, or not Winnipeg. Sorry, Saskatchewan needs this game so fucking bad. No joke. We are reeling right now. No, I'll keep it 100% real. We are struggling. We need this game more than they need it, and we're gonna get it. We're gonna get it done.
But you know, Winnipeg knows that they need this, and I wouldn't put it past them. They're going to come out just as hard, just so they can stick it to Saskatchewan and give them seven in a row.
The good news for us is that we're better than you, so that if we both come out hard, we'll get it done.
One piece of information I have is I believe Adam Bighill has a blown ACL, and I believe he's done for the season. So not enough to move the numbers, I don't think, but he's the heart of the defense without a doubt.
Yeah, that's not totally surprising. The way he went down and the way it looked was not appetizing. But you guys, everybody except for me. Oh, go ahead.
I do have one question. Just this is just like a general. So obviously we played the second half with a defensive lineman at offensive guard, which one certainly helped you guys. But two, whenever he was coming into the game, he had to switch his jersey. Are there numbering rules in the CFL where like offensive linemen can only wear certain numbers? I know we used to have that in the NFL, but they got rid of it a couple years ago. Is that a thing in the CFL still?
Still a thing here, and we saw it earlier this season for the Bombers where Jake Thomas came in on offense well and had to switch jerseys. So I'm not familiar with exactly the numbers. I think it's got to be between 50 and 69 or something like that.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay.
Offense.
Okay. I saw him switch numbers. I hadn't seen it. I didn't see it when it happened to Winnipeg earlier, so I figured I'd ask.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've got a little trivia note for you here as well.
Wonderful.
So
can't wait.
Since 2014, the Riders have won the Banjo Bowl once. Can you name the Riders' starting quarterback in that victory?
Certainly not. But I mean, I guess
I'll give you a
I guess I can take a punch to Zach Caleros. Is that what you're going to tell me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love you so much. We'll take a breather from the West. I will grab things here, bring it into the East. Montreal officially clinches a playoff berth, 10-1 this year. I got to ask, Chris, I'll ask you. I've been starting with SBP a lot. Chris, are you on my side that maybe we want to see Montreal drop a couple of these for the curse of 16-2?
I've always said that, when the Bombers had good runs, good years, you get a little nervous when they keep winning and they forget what the taste of a loss is. I remember Grey Cup in Montreal against Calgary. Bombers were 14-4 that year, heavy favorites against 9-9 Stamps, and the Stamps came out and beat them. And it was devastating. So I think a loss would do well, but the players are going to play to win. And you talk about 10-1. Really, they're 19-1.
Yeah.
Which I don't think there's been another run like that in the league. So they haven't done it in dominating style. They just get out and get the job done. And it'll be a good game this week with BC. Well, those are two heavyweights. It should be a really good one.
Yeah, I'm excited because this has all been without Sean Lemon, obviously. I think it was last week they upheld the suspension, so he's definitely done for the year at least. Indefinitely is more likely the case because that's the ruling that they upheld. So yeah, I'm a little bit nervous, like you said. Cody's been insane. I'm excited for us to get Tyson back. I do want to talk about my fandom a little bit. I know you guys have been very gracious and listened to a couple episodes, and SBP, you send us notes when you can. Hamilton dead last. Part of me, they haven't won since 99. I was born in 99, which might hurt your guys' ears to say out loud. But that being said, part of me, we had Caleb Evans, may as well be Caleb Williams, the way that they play, very similar styles. And so that was a massive influence on my fandom. Part of me thinks that I should be a Hamilton fan. Can you maybe talk me out of that and maybe say that I have a good reason so I can put away some of these doubts?
It's a sympathetic pick right now to cheer for Hamilton. As Bomber fans, we endured a 29-year Grey Cup drought as well, which was a tough pill to swallow. So we understand where Ticat fans are coming from. The beauty in it is that they can't beat Winnipeg in a Grey Cup to save their lives. So if the two of them are going to meet in a Grey Cup, put your money on Winnipeg. If Winnipeg meets anybody else, it becomes a toss-up. Hamilton has had a great tradition as well, but right now they're a disaster, and the only saving grace for them is that they beat Chad Kelly and the Toronto Argonauts, which was great on them. I'd love to see them continue to do so. But I think you picked a good team in the Montreal Alouettes, to be honest. They're another team that's had some ups and downs. They disappeared for a little while. They were renamed at one point. They were the Montreal Concords. They're now they absorbed the Baltimore CFL team, the Baltimore Stallions, and now they are the Montreal Alouettes again. So I'm not going to rag on you for cheering for the Als. As far as teams in the East, as long as it's not the Argos, I'm cool with you.
All right, I guess I feel now a lot more I didn't, Ann called me a front runner, that kind of
You
stuff.
you
And it
are a
was,
front runner.
I mean, it was just bad timing. I
You're
mean, what can you
objectively
do?
you conveniently picked the team who just, as Chris said, went on the best run in the history of the league. And you're like,
Yeah,
yeah,
but
I get twist my arm, I'll cheer for them. Go ahead.
if he picked them today, I'd agree with you, Ant, but he didn't. He picked them last year before
He
they
picked
went
them
on the
after they
run.
won the Grey Cup.
Well, yeah, it was more
He
like
went
week
through the whole
2 this
season
year.
last year. He said, I don't know who I want to root for the whole league. I don't want to pick a team. They win the Grey Cup week 1. He goes, you know what? I'm a Montreal Owls fan.
But I don't
work
think
over there.
I don't think anybody predicted Montreal to be as good as they are this year. We especially as Bomber fans, we
They
thought
were
their victory was a fluke.
Grey Cup odds. What are we talking about here?
We,
Outside of
think it was
you
like third
guys
or
who
fourth.
really shit the bed, they had the second best Grey Cup odds.
yeah, we did not expect them to play as well as Vegas has picked them to do. At least I didn't. That's for
The
sure.
Vegas of
They've
Canada.
surprised.
Yeah, the Vegas of Canada. All right. Well, I feel a little bit more secure in myself and my fandom.
You shouldn't.
Okay.
Also, we have to talk. There's this idea that you should be rooting for your team to lose is asinine. There's no world where it's. This is because you've never. No offense, you've never had a team this good. You're not.
Hey, the Packers won the Super Bowl, went 15-1.
Yeah, when you were 5 years old, they won the Super Bowl.
More like 9 and 10, but who cares?
No. You've never had a team this good. You don't root for your team to lose ever. Never. This is crazy. Rather than being afraid of the 16-2 curse, break the 16-2 curse, you sicko.
All right, maybe we'll just go 17-1 and win the whole damn thing.
Yeah.
We could
Let's do that, Saskatchewan. But I hear you.
Well, you might want to beat Winnipeg first.
Fuck you.
living in a dream world.
All right, that was a fair shot from you, Ant. Montreal this weekend gets BC. I'm a little bit nervous. Rourke against probably the best defense in the league, thankfully. What are you guys seeing from Rourke? I saw the initial signing. I mean, everything goes back to Reddit because that and the CFL website are my main source of info and my main source of takes. But SBP, I'll start with you here. Getting progressively better. Rourke is, like I said, kind of in the open. He's been almost like the chosen one. And obviously Curtis, Nathan's younger brother, is coming through the ranks here. What is it about the Rourkes? Is it just because they're talented quarterbacks, obviously played the game growing up, that's got CFL fans excited? Or what makes at least Nathan, his aura, his legacy seem to stand out above the rest right now?
Canadian passport is number one. The fact that we've got a homegrown Canadian quarterback that's lighting the world on fire. Now, when he first burst on the scene, he went 10-1 as a starter. He was running so hot. And I feel bad for the guy that twofold. His first game back, the hype train from the fans and the media was just completely over the top. The expectations heaped on him. And then he's got to come in and play the Bombers. And they completely shut him down 2 weeks after shutting out the BC Lions and Vernon Adams Jr. So to ask this guy to come back and play against a defense that's on the rise like that was just too much. And he was 10-1 against the rest of the league, 0-3 against Winnipeg, now 0-4 against the Bombers. You can't heap that on the guy. Now, to defend him, I picked him in fantasy this week because I saw the trend. I saw him on the rise, and I thought he's going to be in Victoria, which is where he was born. That was the time to take Nathan Rourke, and he lived up to expectations. Now, can he maintain that? I think he'll be a very good CFL quarterback. I don't know if he's going to be the all-time great, but it's wonderful to see a Canadian quarterback have that kind of success.
Chris, you kind of gave us the info that I didn't realize. I mean, his grandmother in attendance this past weekend. I would have never have bet Ottawa had I known that. So what are you seeing from your perspective when it comes to Rourke, who's kind of the headline, it feels like, each week at this point?
Yeah, I think Vegas set us up for a fall on that one for sure. Looking back at it now, there's no way it should have been 3.5. But no, Nathan, I agree. He came in with one practice, traveling across the continent to get to his first game. Obviously, was going to be rusty. Second game, traveled to Ottawa. Same thing. A little better first half. Started getting the legs going, but Ottawa's been playing well at home. And then at home in front of, I think they said he had 45 family members at the game. That was his hometown. Of course, he was going to be a superstar then. The real question for SBP is, do you take him in fantasy this week in Montreal, or does he come down from his high?
I'm not touching him this week. I don't think. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he puts up close to 300 yards and a couple of touchdowns, so a decent week. But I wouldn't take really any quarterback against that Montreal defense.
Or do you go with McLeod Bethel Thompson, the normal 500-yard passer, right?
Oh man.
Well, I'm hoping to see Trey Ford come in that one, but
I don't know. After last week, I'm not sure we're going to see Trey anytime soon. I agree with you. I'd love to see him.
That was a great game on Monday. I'm excited to do the role reversal here now. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I think Dequan maybe finds one of those Rourke passes, because it still seems like he's not totally seeing the defense, even though he got the legs going. And I'm nervous. I'm excited, and like I kind of mentioned right away too, that 10th team, in the way that we keep getting quarterbacks in this league, like Davis Alexander could absolutely lead a team at this point. I mean, 3 games, sure, 2.5 games, maybe that's an overreaction, but his arm strength, I think the quarterback play in this league is more than enough to warrant a 10th team. Now, that's not how decisions are made, but I think with the Rourke VA question coming up likely here in a few weeks, if not in these next 2 to 3 weeks, it'll be interesting. But Saturday, Toronto heads to Ottawa. Toronto obviously coming off a heartbreaker to the worst team in the league. Bo Levi, they said he's like 7-0 now on Labor Day. What's him and Caleros? I think Ant and I were both excited for, and we've gotten the slow start for Caleros, some of the injuries to the wide receivers. But now Kelly's back against Drew Brown. What are you guys? Chris, I'll start with you again here. What do you see in this game that's before the Banjo Bowl?
Well, I think this is probably your first triple header as well. We got 3 games in one day, so you get your CFL feed. It is a long day. It's a fun day. I don't know about Toronto. They've had to deal with Chad Kelly, that whole change. And I think Ottawa is going to want to prove itself after, an admittedly weak effort out on the West Coast. They're going to be back again, playing in front of their home fans, proving that, they're not a fluke, that they are right behind Montreal. And it's a big game for both teams. Ottawa can jump, I think 5 points or 6 points ahead of Toronto here and stay close to Montreal. And then Montreal and Ottawa meet a couple times. So, the back end of the season is going to get very, very interesting. We'll see how it goes down, and don't count Hamilton out. I agree with Pete. They're struggling, but if they can get on a run of a couple of games here, they're not out of it by any stretch either.
Well, Bo Levi, SBP, I'll throw this one to you. I mean, we talked about like Caleros and kind of the legacy that Ann and I were excited to see going into the season. I mean, each guy is kind of, I would say, in the twilight. I don't know if that's fair. Maybe you can correct me on that. But yeah, I mean, that looked like what I was told was kind of vintage Bo Levi. I mean, obviously Tim White certainly helps any quarterback, but and some of those deep balls. I guess the question is regarding Hamilton is I mean, what have we from Bo Levi? I mean, he seems like he's kind of got an attitude. I don't know if that's fair to say. Certainly from some of the offseason comments and that kind of stuff, the Grey Cup last year. But Bo Levi, talk to me a little bit about his legacy and what we're seeing from him now and what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, I think he should have jumped on CFL fandom about 5 years ago if he wanted to see peak Zach Collaros and peak Bo Levi Mitchell. You're right. I mean, they're both in their, like, I think they're both over 35 now, kind of at that tail end, but they both still have fight in them. And it's like, a one-legged Tiger Woods coming back and winning a Masters. You just don't know when they're going to catch that lightning in a bottle and come back and put out a performance like that. This is another game earlier this season. Bo Levi had 5 touchdown passes as well. So it's still there. It's just not there every week. He is going to go down as one of the all-time greats in the CFL, as much as a lot of fans that he didn't play for their team hate him. You have to give him the respect of a quality quarterback. Zach Collaros had more ups and downs in his career than Mitchell did. When Mitchell was in Calgary, he was just consistently doing some amazing things. Zach had some injuries here and there throughout his career, leg injury, neck injury that he's battled back, and he found the right fit in Winnipeg. He found an offensive line that could keep him upright. So I wouldn't count Mitchell completely out, but I don't think I would be confident that he's going to be a guy that's going to win me 12 games in a season by any means.
Fair enough. All right. Now my expectations from the start of the year feel a little bit more tempered and justified. Lastly, it will kind of go through it quick. I mean, maybe we shouldn't still for Calgary and Edmonton. I mean, I had Edmonton money line, thank goodness. Saved the weekend and it ended me with the plus sign for the week. Luckily. So, I mean, that game, especially the end, the punt return, and then the touchdown right back at them to seal it for Edmonton. I mean, both these teams now 8 points. They're not out of it. I think probably the loser this weekend, that final game, is going to be out of it. Chris, though, you kind of talked about the 2, which is something I'm going to have to learn here. It sounds like a major Canadian road. Talk to me about what you're seeing along the 2 this week.
Yeah, they may be tied in points, but one team is obviously on an upward trajectory and the other is going downward, and I don't see that changing this week. And Anthony brought up a point earlier about kickers. Edmonton paid in the offseason Boris Beattie, I think, $200,000, which is unheard of for a kicker in the CFL. He struggled this year, and they kept Dean Faithful on the practice roster. And they made the change this week. And Dean came in and he kicked the field goals he had to. He kicked the point afters, and they won the game. So to Anthony's point, sometimes even fan favorites and veteran players, you got to make a change for the better for the team. So we'll see who kicks for Saskatchewan this week. I don't think Saskatchewan's as smart as Edmonton in that regard, however.
Oh, that has to hurt. That has to hurt. Well, I know SBP, do you have the lines readily available? I mean, last time we had Chris on, unfortunately SBP, we didn't have you on. We had you in the off season. Chris, last time we had you on 3-1, which was insane. I don't know, SBP, if you have the lines up by chance. I know we were talking about it kind of.
I can grab them right quick here. Just give me 1 second.
Absolutely. Well, we can make our picks this week, and then we'll get you guys out of here because you've spent more than enough of your time. Unless you have any, is there any final? You know what? We'll save this for after the picks before we say our goodbyes. But Friday night, BC Montreal. If you have that, let me know what the numbers say.
So all the home teams are favored this week. Alouettes by 3.5.
Ooh, I don't like that number. And
what
are you thinking over there?
What's the over?
Oh, I don't have the over under. I just got that one.
Okay, that's okay. Okay, so
3.5 is a gross number.
Yeah, it's a trap line from the Vegas of Canada. I think I've been on a cold streak, so probably just fade me. Montreal's the pick here. Yeah, I think they're the best team in the league coming off a bye week, so take them.
That's true. Cody's pretty healthy. I think I'm going to follow you there, especially with my magic number. I think it grew again this week, or got smaller, I should say, this week between you and I, Ant. So I'm going to take Montreal minus 3.5. The only reason being, I think maybe we get up like 4 or 5. Get one of these weird CFL scores, and then Rourke maybe throws a backbreaker late to Dequoy. Maybe he tracks one down a deep ball to some of these BC receivers, which, actually, is this our first show since, Touchdown Pacific, obviously, first show since our guy, Aiden Eberhard.
Aiden, yeah.
I mean, wide open, first CFL major. I messaged him. I did not use my time. I always feel bad when I get a chance to message these guys anything over like 2 or 3 messages. I start to feel like I'm wasting their time, but he says he appreciates us, Ant. So I'll extend that to you guys too, because you guys have helped us, SVP and Chris, on this show. So
I have to say, when he scored, the crowd just went wild. Like there was an extra level of volume for him. So it was awesome to see.
Oh, that makes my heart so happy. He's such a good guy, such a good cat. But you guys got to make picks here. SBP, why don't you make it? Why don't you make the first one?
I would take Alouette's money line, but I like the Lions and the points. I think it's going to be close. We've seen Montreal at home this year get down early and have to battle back to win. I think that's going to be the case again this time around, and they're going to eke one out. But I don't like the 3.5.
Fair enough, Chris. What do you got?
I'm going to go on the over-under, which is 50.5. They're expecting rain on Saturday, which is going to slow things down. So I'm going to take the under.
All right, look at that. Just a couple guys knowing ball. Triple header Saturday. Let's start with the afternoon. This is so perfect. I mean, I'll have college football starting at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. I'll have the CFL on my phone for sure. Toronto in the nation's capital, Ottawa. What do you got for the numbers there, SBP?
It is Red Blacks by 1.5.
Ooh, I get where. I'll ask the two CFL lifers here. Drew Brown, most outstanding player. I mean, obviously the touchdown numbers aren't there, but I mean, what do you guys think? I feel like I'm not necessarily betting it now, but as far as an opinion, I mean, to where Ottawa we thought was preseason to now, it feels like, I mean, the guy's like throwing for 380 a game.
Yeah, it's been impressive, and with the injuries to VA and now being replaced by Rourke and the injury to Fajardo, it's a lot more wide open in that most outstanding player. And Drew Brown came in with kind of a small sample size. We saw him with a few starts with Winnipeg, but not a lot. And he came in some relief duty, some mop-up duty here and there. He's exceeded my expectations. I thought he was going to be a solid starter, but he's had a great year this year and has proven that he should be a number one guy in the league. I love the confidence he has. He's not afraid to sling it. And I think he's going to go far. As far as this, I'll give you my pick in this game since I'm yammering on here. I think Chad Kelly's going to have a hard time on the road the rest of the season, and rightfully so. I hope fans in every stadium just ride his ass and make him miserable. And when they do that, mistakes will happen. So I'm taking the Red Blacks minus the 1.5 in this one. I think and they've been very good at home this year too. And I'm hoping that this continues and that they bury the Argonauts.
I love it, Chris. I do want to extend a question because we talked a couple weeks about I'm not gonna say his name, so I'm not gonna the linebacker a couple years ago that won the most outstanding player. Was it Edmonton's linebacker?
So Enoch Mwamba?
Yes, thank you. And here we have in the next game, Roland Milligan, who's having quite a year, continuing with the MLP discussion. I mean, I looked at the odds FanDuel. I mean, I'm in Wisconsin, so I just select Illinois as my state when I look at it. It was like plus 10,000. So I feel like if you're a gambler, that might not be a horrible idea. But what do you guys think of the odds of him?
I think the odds are correct for that one. I think you can certainly, it'll pay well if it happens, but I think the odds are slim. Enoch had an absolutely incredible season. He did get a start with the Bombers, like to throw that in there. But yeah, I expect it will go to one of the quarterbacks for this year based on what we see in the first half.
Fair enough. That's why I asked the question. You got to pick for Ottawa, Toronto?
I'm going to go with Ottawa. Home field. Again, the weather could be iffy, and I agree. I think the fans here won't be quite as bad as in Hamilton for them, but they're certainly going to let them know that what happened earlier was unacceptable.
Sounds good. And your thoughts?
Yeah, this is tough for me. I spent the entire season bashing Ottawa and saying that they suck. Didn't matter how many games they won, they suck. And then last week I picked them because I said I'm going to respect them and they're good now. And then they did what they did last week, and they look like garbage again. They look like, vintage Winnipeg. But I don't want to root for Chad Kelly, so I'm gonna take Ottawa again. Actually, Chris, do you have the over/under number? Because I did promise to get over/under every week.
51.5.
Damn. I'm gonna take the under. I'm gonna take the under 51.5. I think, like you guys said, Chad Kelly's probably gonna get in his head. He's going to throw some bad throws. Toronto's going to stay under, so I think the whole game stays under. That's my take.
Well, I would have said it'd be a clean sweep, but I'll take Ottawa at the minus 1.5. I'm going to skip the Banjo Bowl for now. Let's go to Calgary at Edmonton. Do we have a line?
Elks by 2.5. And Chris, the over under.
I don't have it here.
Nope.
It's not showing up.
Oh no.
Oh.
What a shame. The high level production value of this podcast is gonna drop significantly. I will take after what we saw. I'm gonna change my mind mid pick. We saw the bad Jake Meyer last week. We know how this is an every other week situation, so we know to jump on Calgary this week. Give me the plus 2.5. This will be a good Jake Meyer game after last week. And we'll go back around the other way, counterclockwise.
I have been taking Edmonton I've done the opposite with Winnipeg and Ottawa, or Edmonton and Ottawa. I've been taking Edmonton every week and they keep losing, and I've been taking the opposite of Ottawa every week and they kept winning. I'm going to keep taking Edmonton though because I love them. I think they're a lot of fun. I like Edmonton a lot, and I think they're going to win by at least a field goal. I think they might win by more, but I think they're going to win for sure.
Fair enough. Chris, continue the circle.
Elks, hands down. I think they'll clear the number. It should be almost in double digits, in my opinion.
Wow, not even close. SBP, do you have a different opinion?
I told my friends at the Turf District podcast 2 weeks ago that I expected the Elks to sweep this series. I'm sticking with it. I don't know about the double digits, but Edmonton is trending the right direction right now. They got rid of the stink from Chris Jones. He's gone. They're moving on. They've got a coach that's not afraid to play a quarterback that he thinks can be a winner. Maybe not a best guy in practice, but Trey Ford's a gamer. We're going to see both quarterbacks potentially in this one. If Macbeth struggles early, Ford comes in and really gives a different look to that offense. I like the Elks. I would probably take them at 4.5 for sure. I don't know if I go much beyond that, but yeah, Elks are going to sweep that series.
If you like them at 4.5, you'll love them at 2.5. They're SBP. I'm excited. I guess I'm the only guy on Calgary. I'm riding the Jake Meyer train. We'll see if the trend continues. Last, most certainly not least, the middle of the day. Are either of you going to be in attendance, my Canadian friends?
Not this year.
No, I'll be at the Ottawa game, not making Banjo Bowl this year.
Oh, heartbreaking to hear, but that's okay. What do we have the numbers as their SBP?
We've got Winnipeg minus 2.5.
Winnipeg coming off the win minus 2.5. Chris, do you have an over-under for this one?
Yeah, 47.5.
Ooh, an ugly game after both teams get in the 30s last week. Let's do it. I'll make my pick first, and we'll go back around the circle. I think Saskatchewan, Big Hill, too big of an injury to overcome. I think after Lothar lined it up, I mean, he was great the week after the Montreal game. Not saying he maybe wins the game on a field goal, but he'll have a couple good ones that lead them to the victory. I'm going to go opposite of taking Winnipeg money line last week, and I will take Saskatchewan this week. I just got to play the percentage points there in my head. SBP, let's hear it from you.
I'm never doing this podcast again.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So two things. We got the Bombers minus 2.5. You can move that decimal one place to the right. I'd take them at minus 25 in this one. Bombers are going to blow them out of the water, as is the Banjo Bowl tradition. Zach Collaros loves this game. He was full participant in practice this week. Over-under is not even at 50. The Bombers are going to hang 50 on them. This one is a blowout. All the way Blue Bombers. No questions.
All right, Ant, wait your turn. Let's go to Chris. Let's go to the bucket guy. I mean, by the 85 for Milt Stiegel hanging behind you, I mean, that sounds like what SBP thinks is going to be put up for you guys there, Chris.
I would love to see that. If they get into the 50s, it's fantastic. It's just the best day of the year ever. However, they snuck a win out of Regina. Let's be honest. There were a lot of things that worked out in their favor. They got out there, but a win is a win is a win, especially on Labor Day. It doesn't matter how you get it. But I think they're going to win. I think it's going to be a lot closer. I think they win by 3, so I'll take the over to 2.5.
2.5. All right, Ant. You may make your pick.
I mean, there's not much suspense here. Right? I agree with a lot of what SVP there is saying. I think you can move the decimal place over, but then you need to add a vertical, or you need to add a vertical line there. It's yeah. I mean, it's Saskatchewan by a fucking billion, by a fucking billion. We're gonna blow them out. 50 is not enough for how many points Trevor Harris is gonna hang on those bums. Add another zero on the end of that while we're at it. 500 points in Princess Auto Stadium. That terrible, terrible stadium, Princess Auto. There's absolutely no fear in the Saskatchewan Roughriders going into Princess Auto. I'm not worried.
Oh man, Corey Mace hopefully has the guys rearing to go and ready to go. We will see what happens. Everybody, thank you first of all for listening. I do SBP. I mean, the two of you, you and Chris. Thank you so much for your help, and for always giving us, more than we could ask for as such a little startup. SBP with your notes every week. Chris, we really can't say enough. You put us in that little shout out you did a couple weeks ago. That meant the world, which we genuinely really appreciate. No matter what comes out of Anthony's mouth, I know that I can speak for the both of us there. So rivalry, the Banjo Bowl, our first, I'm very excited for. Thank you guys for hopping on.
Oh, it's great. And like Chris alluded to earlier, CFL fandom is a family. And sometimes you've got that idiot brother, but you deal with them. But no, absolutely. We love to have you guys as part of the CFL family. You've embraced it. You've jumped into the CFL with both feet, and we love it. We love the support. And the more you can do to spread the word of how great the CFL is south of the border, the better. One quick little note as well. This week at the Banjo Bowl, Charles Roberts is going to be inducted into the Ring of Honor. If you don't know about him, he's a running back, over 10,000 yards rushing in the CFL, over 9,900 of those with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Small guy, reminds Javon Leake as a running back this year, reminds me a lot of Charles Roberts. So if you want to check him out on YouTube, have a look. They called him Blink because blink and you miss him. So a great honoree on the Ring of Honor this week.
I feel like Canadians always come up with great nicknames, but maybe that's just me. Chris, I want to thank you again. Give you a final platform, final statement.
Well, the last thing I want to say to both Bryce and Anthony, I mean, you guys were awesome about virtually filling the bucket during the journey. I think you set the tone and the inspiration for a lot of people getting it out in the media. You guys were the first ones. And it just took off in ways that we couldn't imagine. So, hey, however little or big a part you guys had of it, you're a part of it the entire journey. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much, man. Ant, I'll give you the floor for the last second.
Like I said, Bryce is right. As much as I talk, I like to play up the rivalry because all of my teams are in big rivalries. I have fun with them, but we really do appreciate both of you. Genuinely, you are good friends. So regardless of how bad we have to beat you this week, we appreciate you coming on and everything that you guys have done for us.
That is vintage Anthony fashion right there. All right, everybody. This has been the Football A podcast. Bryce Hopwood, Anthony Ventura, our guy Snack Bites Pete. Give him a follow. And then Chris, the bucket guy. If you just look that up in X or Twitter, whatever you like to call it these days, you can find him as well. Snack Bites Pete is the full name for SBP. So thank you guys, everybody, and we'll see you next week after our first ever Banjo Bowl.
Maybe.